Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of AI Dev Tools. Today I'm your host Simon, and in this episode we are going to learn on how you can build production-ready app using vibe coding. And to talk about this topic, today we have Himantika Mitra. She's a developer advocate at DigitalOcean. Himantika, welcome to the show.
Hi, Simon. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very excited to be talking about this one term that has been taken over the internet and the tech world since, I guess, last year or early this year.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Vibe coding is everywhere, and we're all really looking forward. What you have got to talk about vibe coding, I've added your screen to the stream. So let's just get started.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Hi, folks. This is Hemantika, and today we'll be talking about how you can build production ready applications with vibe coding. Before I go on to the slides, this is going to be a session where I'll share some tips how you can use some of the tools, some prompting techniques, and also some best practices to build an application that goes beyond your local host, or that goes beyond a demo application with real users. And before I go into that, here's a bit of me. Hi, once again, this is Hemantika. I work as a developer advocate at DigitalOcean, and my work here includes writing some code, building community initiatives, and also building some content, be it written tutorials, or you might also find me on our YouTube, where I'm also sharing and creating some videos. Other than that, I also love building a lot of projects, especially on the weekends, and you can find them at hamantika.dev. And a lot of it that I use it with a mix of previous coding knowledge that I have, plus using all of these AI tools that we see today to vibe code some parts of it. And a lot of these projects also have thousands and hundreds of users, with my recent one clocking over 600 plus users across the globe. And that is what we will be talking about in this session, that how I could build something like the application which we will talk about in the next few minutes, using using AI as a peer coder. Basically, like, and AI was always there with me. It was there to help me remove the bugs. It was helped me in making the UI look beautiful and helping me add in some features. And that's like a little bit of gist of what we will be seeing today. But apart from that, I also love to travel and I also love to write. So before we go on to the next slides, since we're talking about traveling, so this is what I have built. What you see here is an application called Nomado. And I am somebody who travels a lot. So the first problem that I usually face is visa issues. That, okay, do I need a visa? What are the different, like sites that I need to go to for getting my visa? So this endless questions that I get, especially while traveling. Then what is the kind of itinerary should I have? What are the local traditions and customs? Are there real reviews from people who have visited the places? So this all of these things that I have in mind while traveling. And there was not one site that I could find. So that is when I built Nomado. And parts of it are built using code, but also parts of it are built using vibe coding. Before I show you a quick demo of what Nomado is or what it looks like, I would also like to say that the definition of vibe coding really differs from people to people. First, for the first time when Andrej posted it, he's like, I'm not even using my hands to code. He's just using voice, and AI is able to take those instructions and write the code for him. I have a different definition where I'm using AI mostly as a peer programmer with me by my side, helping me code and helping me ship products faster and also make them look better. So, a quick demo of what Nomado does. Let's say my passport country is from India and I'm traveling from India to Singapore. So when I click on finding visa info, it gives me the information needed. Plus, it also routes me to the link from where I can apply for the visa. So this is very helpful, and you do not need to get lost in the nested websites that governments have. And here, let's say I'm I want an itinerary that is very personalized, and it could be maybe for 5 days. I'm going in the month of September, and I can ask AI to give me, a plan for how sing or what should I do in Singapore in the month of September for 5 days. So it gives me a big list of what 5 day itineraries of where I should go, where I should eat, what all I should carry, then some local food that I should carry, some local transportation like MRTs. I was just there in Singapore, so I know that this is very accurate. I'll also give you a brief later about how all of this is working. But then you can also look for options. Since I live in Hyderabad, so maybe I want to go from Hyderabad to Singapore. I'll just book a one-way ticket, but you can also book round tickets. So you click on getting flight information, and it will give you flight information along with the type of aircraft, because we know sadly this year there's a lot of increase, or there's an increase in the number of flight accidents. So it also tells you which kind of aircraft it is, whether it's a Boeing or it's an Airbus. So you can be well and informed whenever you are booking a flight. So you can see that it says it's an Airbus, this is a Boeing, and you can book tickets from Skyscanner or Expedia or Kayak. So this is another page where you can get some special tips for Indian visa holders. And this is a chatbot that I have. I'll just go to some of the old chat that I have so that I can save some time. So the chatbot can help me with accommodation results. Basically, when I say that I want to go to Bali, it gives me a list of all accommodation results along with price ranges. Plus it also tells that if it's a co-working and a co-living space, so if you are somebody who is a remote worker and you want to do a workation, you have recommendations also for that. Plus when I say that what all things should I keep in mind, so it tells things like, okay, these are some local customs that you should keep in mind. I had paused it here so you don't see it, but then you can basically chat with this chatbot and ask your questions about the place that you're traveling to. And then there's finally this community part where there's not a lot of experiences, but then there are few people who have mentioned that, okay, this is, I love the city, it's a nice vibe. Then somebody has mentioned about Kolkata. So this is what I have built with a mixture of vibe coding plus with some computer science knowledge. But in this presentation, we will see how you, who can be an absolute beginner but can make use of AI tools today to build products, and even if you do not have computer science degree or computer science background. So let's get started with that. First things first, why I had this scary screenshot is because not very long ago we saw that there was this person who built his SaaS totally with cursor and absolutely zero handwritten code. But 2 days later he was under attack, and people were, misusing the API keys, and they were bypassing the subscription, and then they were creating random things on the database. So what actually ended up happening to him is that he had to close the startup or the product that he built with cursor and then start afresh with some other tool. But I do not want all of you to go through something similar, which is why we are having this session. So first things first, whenever you are planning to build an application and you plan to take it live somewhere, so that like somewhere it will be on the internet, you need to make sure that it has two things. The first one is a proper architecture, and the second one is strong security practices. So proper architecture, it, like, if you are somebody who's an absolute beginner, it might be a little hard for you to plan how an architecture will look like. And but this is where you can take use of chat gpt or any, or Claude, or any other AI tools you have. So you tell them the idea, write definitive prompts and tell it that, okay, this is what I'm trying to build, what all services do I need to have. And then on the side also have tools like Excalibur, so that is basically a drawing board. I use Excalibur a lot. So just draw some squares and boxes and visualize the application that you are trying to build. So maybe like it could be a to-do app, so you just say that okay, it will have login and authentication, then maybe it will have some tick marks, or maybe it will have a scribble type part, it will have a button, a text area. So just plan those in a drawing board, and then you can send it to AI tools and say that, okay, this is what I'm planning to do. This is what I want my application to have. Can you help me build a proper architecture so that it scales well? It can support multiple users, and it doesn't break when I'm trying to do XYZ or when I'm trying to add new features. So this is the first thing that you need to do. When the foundation is strong, the way about becomes way easier. So this is a good, or if you really see yourself as somebody as an indie hacker or a builder who is trying to build stuff with vibe coding, this is a great start. Have a strong foundation, and the way up, like I mentioned, is going to be easier, and it's also going to make sure that your application doesn't break midway. Next is strong security practices. This is very important. There are some common practices like have whatever API keys you have, make sure that it is in an .env file, and that you are not, if your code lives in GitHub, you make sure that you are not committing it to GitHub. Then again, let's say that you are trying to build a front end, so make sure that you are not hard coding any of this, any of these keys in the front end. Have a proper structure, and all of these, like, you, so learn, maybe go to, again, use another AI tool and ask that, hey, this is what I'm trying to build, what are some of the security practices that I should follow, and then maybe tell it that, give it another prompt and say search the internet for it, so it can look, search the internet, look for common security breaches, and then suggest you how to do it. Then you take this input, go to Cursor or any other AI coding tool that you're using, and tell the AI tool that, hey, this is what I want to build. So whenever you are helping me build these features, make sure that you are taking care of these security practices as well. So a big part of vibe coding also involves writing prompts really well and explaining yourself very well to the AI. So a lot of people these days, they say how English is going to be the programming language in the near future. So you need to clearly communicate to the AI whatever you're trying to build and whatever output you want at the end of the day. So in the next slide, what we will see is how you can actually prompt well, and then you can build pixel perfect applications with the help of AI. So first things first, be specific and give some context. So context helps. Maybe let's say when I was trying to build Domado, and I was, let's say I wanted to integrate something. So I would give it a bunch, some snippets of code that I have written before, and I would say that, hey, this is how the integration works. I want you to do the same thing, but for this use case. So now what I'm doing is I'm giving Claude context of a code that I have written before, and it works. So it knows, it learns from it, and then it gives me a suggestion. This reduces the chances of hallucination and also wrong output, or the AI giving you wrong code. So giving context is very important, plus also being very specific. So let's say you want it to do something in a particular language or framework, just mention that, okay, I have an example here. So I'm using Ruby 3.3.5 with Rails 7, so I want you to do XYZ. The more specific you are with your prompts and the better context you give, the better it is for AI to understand, learn, and give you an output. And next, have clear instructions. So let's say you're refactoring a code. So you, and then the code that are there from lines 10 to 20 is what you do not like, or you wanted to change how it's looking. So you just go to the chat interface and you mention that, okay, uh, lines 10 to 20, this is how we are doing it right now, and this is the kind of output that I'm getting, but I want you to change that, and I want the output to look like this. So when you're giving it clear instructions, the AI then knows that, okay, this is what is expected out of me, this is what is happening right now. So I it will know how to change the code. AI is smart enough to know that it will know how to change the code to get your desired output. A lot of times it might work in the first prompt itself, or maybe you'll have to prompt it second time or third time to help you get the desired output. Usually please fix doesn't work. I know there's a lot of memes on that as well, where people just say please fix and cursor is not able to fix, or not just cursor but any other IDE is not able to fix it because it doesn't know. There is no clear instruction, there's no context, and we are not being very specific to AI. So these are top two tips that I have for writing prompts well. And the next one is that break bigger features into smaller tasks. So, for example, when I was building the community, the filter part that you saw, where there were options for me to choose different cities, that is something that I have used AI to build it. And what I gave it the prompt is that, okay, this is what I already have, and I want you to build a simple filter where people can select on a particular selection, and it only shows you the output from of that selection, and this output is coming from my database which is in DigitalOcean. So now I'm not only being specific, but I'm also telling that, okay, this is where the code is. So I'm giving, being specific, having context, I'm giving it clear instructions that, okay, I want it to fetch the data from my database which is in DigitalOcean. And then I'm just telling it to, okay, just help me build the filter feature. You don't have to worry about the UI or fine tuning it right now. So this is how prompting well works. It takes time. If you're expecting that vibe coding, like with vibe coding, you can build something in an hour or two, something complex in an hour or two. That's not going to happen. You need to spend time with AI and work on prompts, and then it will be able to give you your desired output. Next, also use a conversational flow. For example, like the example that you see here on the slide, you need to start with the purpose and text tag. So help, it's like talking to, having a conversation with AI or having a conversation to a human. For example, when you are trying to express your interest or express your views to somebody, you need to tell them a story of where you're coming from or what it is about, and then share your views. Similar thing with AI, you need to start with a purpose. Like when I started Nomado, I told the AI that, okay, this is what I'm trying to build, a travel app where people can share comments and views, and it's currently using Next.js, and for I'm also using Tailwind. So what I want to do is I want you to help me with the filter feature. And all AI tools these days, they have the context that is saved in the conversation, so AI will remember the context that you shared, and then it will build on it. And I'm sure that by the end of if you're following all of these four tips that I just mentioned, I'm sure your vibe coded applications will immediately be easier to build, and you'll see that the bloat that any IDE was adding before has become lesser, and it is closer to the kind of application that you want to build. So prompting is a big part of building any application that you see today. Moving forward, cool. So here are some must-haves that I feel that almost every vibe coded applications should have, and this is what can take your applications from demo to production. First things first, I like to dream big. So whenever I'm building something, I like to think that, okay, there's going to be hundreds of people who are going to use it, and there's going to be maybe hundreds and thousands of people who are going to use it at the same time. So what are some of the services or products or features that I should have in my application to make sure that when there's more traffic, or when there is more features that I'm adding to it, there is no lag, there is nothing is breaking, everything is smooth sailing. So after building a few applications with a mixture of vibe coding and handwritten code, this is something that I have come up with. A lot, if you're building something very simple, you may not need all of it, but it's a good practice to at least know about these technologies and maybe read up a bit. So we are moving towards a generation where everybody is technical in some way or the other. So just having some basic concepts about the technologies that is mentioned here, it's going to help you. So first things first is maybe add a load balancer. So let's say that I remember a story when early last year, I built a GitHub roast application and it blew up. It had over 2000 people who were using it, and at the same time there were around 200 or 300 people who were using it. So I needed to make sure that everything is working as expected. That was a simple application that did not need a load balancer. But imagine your load is higher and you need to make sure that everything is working as expected. So maybe add load balancers, and there are tools that can help you build it. For example, there is Nginx, there is a DigitalOcean managed load balancers. So what load balancer does, it literally balances the load. So whenever there is a lot of traffic coming in, it spreads it across to different servers, so that what happens is nothing goes down and your app remains up and above and everybody is able to use your application at all times. So this is one thing. Next is maybe have a managed database. And the reason why I mention having a database is that you can do things locally, but it's always a good idea to have a database if your application needs one. And you, even if you are somebody who doesn't know how to work with databases, you can use something like even DigitalOcean has managed databases. So you just need to click from the GUI, and then it will create a database for you. And in your code, you just need to make a connection and your database will be created. Maybe you need to write a few simple queries, but you can do that with AI tools. But I'll give you an example of where I am using a database in Nomado, like the community that you saw. So whenever somebody is adding some comments, it goes to my DigitalOcean database, and like there's a filter. So whenever you click on, like let's say you want reviews about Dubai, so you click on that and it fetches the information that it has about Dubai. So having a database is something that I usually advise rather than maybe having something locally to fetch the details. But if your application needs it, I do advise on having a managed database. Then adding authentication and authorization, especially with apps like Superbase, AppRite, it's super easy these days to add authentication and authorization. My Some of my apps do not have authentication and authorization because I simply do not want to add that barrier. But let's say if you are using keys, or if you want to, or if let's say if that information is necessary to unlock some features, or let's say it needs a profile section or a user section, then I highly recommend you adding auth or authorization to your application. And even with tools like Lovable, Bolt, you'll see that they already have integrations with Superbase. So it's all just few clicks these days for you to have authentication. And as we learned in the last slide, that if you're using effective prompts, you can build fully functioning backend features as well, plus with the AI tools that we have today. And the final one is something that, again, you'll probably not need in apps that are very early stage, but just setting up some logging. A lot of tools also gives this out of the box. So you'll get to see how or basically you'll able to monitor and see how your applications are performing. And if there are any changes that it has to be made, you can do that. But if you want to go a level deeper, you can also set up monitoring and logging with tools like Prometheus, Grafana, or there are also other cloud observability services like New Relic that you can use to track performance or catch errors early. I'll give an example of where this is used. If you have seen e-commerce websites like Amazon, in India we have Flipkart, and when they have sale, there's a lot of traffic in it, and then there might be cases that something is breaking, but before it breaks, if there is proper monitoring and logging, the development team can go and fix it so that nothing goes down and everything works as expected. So this is a good to have thing but not a must haves. But all of these features or technologies that I have mentioned are something that I personally recommend you to learn about and see how you can implement it or add them to your applications, as this is going to make your applications really scalable or take it to the production level that we expect applications in real life to be. So, we are almost coming to the close of this presentation. Here are some checklists that I have for scaling your vibe coded applications. The first one is plan for growth with a clear architecture. Like I mentioned, go to Excalibur or any drawing tool, it can be Canva or even Figma, just with a few boxes and lines. Draw your vision, have a vision of why you're doing it, how you expect it to grow, or maybe write some features that you wanted to have in v0, the number of the type of features that you wanted to have in v1. So have a plan. Like whatever side projects that you're building, I personally like to treat it as a startup. So build it accordingly, and then have a plan for growth, have a architecture, like I mentioned, how you can use AI tools to help you do that. So do it, and then you will see how easier it is to expand your application and also make it scalable. Next is, it's very important to have some testing and deployment. So there's a lot of GitHub actions that are in places that you can apply to your repository or to your application. So it automatically tests for a few things. And for example, there is this Git Guardian. So it checks that if there is any secrets that has been by mistake leaked out. So it will give you a notification saying that, hey, this environment variable or this key has been leaked out, maybe you would want to change that. So that helps in getting abused, or in having any security breaches. And there are multiple of these tools and actions that you can apply to make sure that your application is has a good start, and there are no such common bugs or errors that one might be facing, because you can easily automate all of these. Next, like in this third point is about observability again. So maybe this is something you do not need immediately, like I mentioned, but then it can help you in the near future. So it's just not for debugging, but to know early on what all errors that might be happening, or whatever failures that are happening. So this is something that you do not need early on, especially when you're vibe coding applications, but later when your application grows, this is a good to have feature for sure. And the final one is add features or add technology only if you need it. Like prompt well and shift features intentionally so that it can be used by people, not just because of buzzwords. For example, MCP is the buzzword these days. Does your application really need an MCP? Ask yourself these questions. And if the answer is yes, no, or maybe, if it's yes, then definitely you should try and add it. But if it's no or maybe, then you should think deeper on what else can you add to make sure that the experience is great. So these are four tips that I have, or basically four checklists that I have for scaling your vibe coded application. And keep in mind, this is for scaling it. So not just for building it. The slides that you saw before, it was for helping you build it, but this four tips that you see is for taking your applications a notch above. Maybe taking it from 100 users to 1,000 users, or getting some paid users. So how do you do that? Like that is the ideal scenario of somebody who is vibe coding an application. So that's all about it. And I showed you a demo of Nomado. So then, like I mentioned, I have used some parts of AI, but I have also used some core concepts of computer science that I had before. And now I have around 600 plus active users, with more users that are being onboarded every week. So I'll go back, and so this is where the code lies. You'll also find it here in the footer. You can always go and check out that. But what I did was, the first this some blogs that I have, and I'll make sure to send it to Simon so that he can add it in the description below. So in the blogs, I have mentioned how I actually planned the architecture and how I scaled it to 600 plus users today. But the first thing, what I did was, like I mentioned, I talked a lot about Excalibur, but I did not show you how it looks like. So this is what Excalibur is, and then you can start with a few squares and boxes like this, and you can draw out the vision that you see of your application. I did that too. And then when I was writing all the features that I needed today, what I did was I searched for tools that can help me add most of it. And even though I work at DigitalOcean, but I'll highly recommend that, especially if you're somebody who is independent developer, do check out DigitalOcean. We have $200 also free credit, so you do not need to pay out of pocket immediately. But as you see on the left, there's multiple, like it's a cloud infrastructure. So you get cloud, you get all other infrastructure needs that you need to build an application. If you want to deploy it, if like nomado.live, this is deployed in our app platform. So this is where it is deployed. This is very similar to something like Netlify or Vercel. And then I have mapped it to a custom domain. Next, we saw some AI features where we were generating itineraries, and we were also getting flight information. Plus, there is this chatbot. All of these features were done using the agent platform or the gradient AI platform. Then so this functions is also something I have used. This is helping me get flight information from a TripAdvisor API. Plus, I was talking a little bit of about monitoring, sorry, about networking, which means adding load balancers. So you can do that from DigitalOcean again. Then we talked a little bit about observability, so you can also do that. So what I'm trying to tell you is, whenever you're vibe coding an application, you also need to look for tools that can help you build half of the entire application that you have, and you do not need to integrate it with multiple third party resources. For example, if your the entire app was only built with DigitalOcean and it had just two APIs. One was this Visa Info API, and here the other one I used OpenAI as API to make sure that nobody is typing gibberish or adding profanity to my community feedback. So I just used two other APIs, but I used one entire solution to build majority of the features that you see today, or all of the features for Nomado. Similar thing is what you should also try to do. And maybe if, let's say, if you want authentication or authorization, you can just use another tool, maybe Superbase to handle that or AppRed to handle that. That's how you can reduce the complexity of your application. So choosing tools is also an important step whenever you're trying to vibe code applications. And that's how I have very easily built this entire application, which has now scaled to hundreds of users. Like I mentioned, you can check out the code here. So let's go back to the presentation and the final slide, which is how you can contact me. So there's my LinkedIn. I go by my name, Haimantika Mitra. I have two websites. There's no reason as to why, but then you can find some of my work at haimantika.com and the rest at haimantika.dev. And I am also very active on X with my username, Haimantika M. So that's it for me. And I hope that by the end of this session, you learned how you can start building vibe coded application, how you can scale it. And like I have also shared some of the checklists that you need to follow to make sure that your application is good to go from local host to production. So that's all from my end, and I'll stop the monologue here. Over to you, Simon. Let me know what do you think, and if there's any questions that you might have.
No, that is absolutely amazing. I've always taken vibe coding as a hobby, but I never realized, vibe coding could be such a serious thing, especially when the entire workflow that you had, right? You're talking about Prometheus and everything that I never realized that, one could be doing so much serious stuff with vibe coding. So I absolutely loved it. And I also really loved in how seriously you have built your weekend project. I really liked the way you put out that you should always take your weekend project as if it's a startup, and I think
Yeah,
that is one takeaway because you get to learn a lot, not just code when you work on a weekend projects. You are the sole owner of it. So definitely like a
exactly.
startup, so I would definitely was able to connect there. I don't have any questions, but because it was absolutely amazing, I would really like to know, Hemantika, you told that your application is running off a digital ocean, right? So does the
Yeah.
code also lives in the digital ocean, or it is mapped to your GitHub repository?
Yeah, it's in GitHub. So I'll just share the link on chat so that you can add in the description below as well.
Hmm.
Yep. So since like it is deployed using our app platform, so and I'm using
Hmm.
my personal GitHub as so this I what you see is the forked one and this is the original one. So I'm using
Hmm.
my GitHub repository as the main source. So the entire code is in GitHub and it's using DigitalOcean is using it as a source to deploy the application.
So the application deployment is taking place inside the digital ocean, right?
Yes.
So you have
Yes.
connected your app with the GitHub repository, the digital
Yeah.
ocean app, and that's how it is, accessing your repository. That's great. I think it's a
Ex-
very good platform. People should go in and explore. I've always been a big fan of small VMs that you can run off the
Yeah.
droplets. Pretty cool name. So Himantika, thank you so much for doing for us, and it was lovely to have you. Any final thing you want to plug in before we wrap up the show?
I think that's it from my end. Just one thing, like you mentioned, as a takeaway: take your weekend projects as a startup, and you'll learn. And you never know, maybe this becomes your first big hit. So just have fun while building, and try to learn as many things as you can. And yeah, that's that. Like the basis should be to have fun, and then just hope that it becomes big one day.
All right, Aminga, that was a great show. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. That was AI Dev Tools today. And we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you so much.